Hello and welcome to Video Game Hangover. I'm Randy Dickinson and I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Hey, I'm DJ Ross. I'm in Mountain View, California.
Each week on Video Game Hangover, we talk about the games that have been keeping us up at night. This week, we are playing Splatoon 3's new DLC Side Order. We're also playing Shashingo and Balatro.
Ah, yes, a lot of words in English this week.
A lot of weird nonsense words, yes. Yep. We're playing Oogly Boogly and Scooby Donkey and yeah.
They finally remade Oogly Boogly. I've been waiting for that one.
Yeah.
All right, that's the show, guys. Have a good night.
All the good copyrights were taken, copywritten words were taken. You know, you can only call so many games Gears of War before.
Yep. Gears of War might be available at this point. So you can just use that. I don't know.
They haven't really used that in a long time. Yeah.
No, they're just calling it Gears now, right? They're not even. Is that part of an attempt to spin it off into like different genres so they could do like Gears of cooking, Gears of botany,
Geario Kart?
Geario Kart? Yeah. Are they still at war in that game? Like, how long is the war going to go on? That just seems miserable.
War, DJ. War is forever.
Oh, wow. That's bleak.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not entirely up to date. I know they did that turn-based strategy Gears Tactics.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Gears of Tactics.
Gears of Tactics. Yep. And then nothing. So I think it's been kind of a quiet, like 5-year window for the whole Gears of War series.
Well, now's the time to start trying new things. I imagine people at that studio have got to be like, man, we've just been making war games for the last 3,000 years. Why don't we try something else?
Gears of Peace.
Gears of Peace. Yeah. I mean, that's a good start. It's
like gardening and shop running and all the stuff we love.
Gears of crafting.
Gears, right? It's all the stuff we love. Yeah. Wholesome Gears game.
Yeah.
Yep.
There you go.
Where
Marcus Phoenix in a little pink apron.
Yeah.
Serving cupcakes.
Marcus and Dom finally shack up together in the way that we all kind of thought and hoped they would. And
is that what people were hoping?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Yep. You know, it's a brave new world.
Yeah.
War changes people, DJ.
Yeah. Man, really lost my touch with those games. I haven't been keeping up how the characters have been developing.
But yeah, it should be an interesting week full of games here. We've been playing some fun stuff, so nonsense words or not, we're gonna play them.
Yeah, I'll play any game, no matter what it's called. I don't know,
as long as it's not called Assassin's Creed.
That's true. Yeah, blanket policy: no more Assassin's Creed.
Yep.
I used to really like those games, so I don't know why I stopped playing them.
Yeah, same. I mean, I would not sort of pretend to get on here and say, "Oh, I've never liked Assassin's Creed."
Yeah. No. I remember why. It's because they got real bad, is why. But the first couple were pretty good.
Yeah, they got real samey. I think that was my issue with them too. Is that it felt like, oh, I've played this game. Yeah, and despite sort of the yearly iteration where people on the internet go, "No, it's good this time."
Yes.
I still can't bring myself to play more Assassin's Creed games.
That just constantly happens to me. I don't know if this is your experience, where I'm just like, I've had it. I'll never touch another one of these things, whether it's Assassin's Creed or like Star Trek or whatever, Final Fantasy, and people are like, no, this one's good. Everybody loves this one, and I'm like, oh, you can't fool me. I will never play a fun game again.
Yeah, that's a good policy. You've come to the right place.
Just as I fight off the desire to check out the new Final Fantasy VII remake, people are like, oh, so much fun. They did it again. And I'm just like, nope. It sounds like a bad time to me.
I can't even keep up with those, so I'm definitely not the authority, but
well,
yeah,
maybe at some point.
Open world in general has become like a very difficult thing to approach. I'm feeling a little overwhelmed by Like a Dragon right now. There's a lot of other games coming out too, so I feel very distracted. But just the pressure, kind of internal pressure I feel to get back to Like a Dragon, is a little overwhelming. And that map is just massive, and there's so much stuff to do. And I've not even found the Animal Crossing, like, what we were joking about before, the little wholesome mini game that's kind of tucked away in there. So once that comes, it's just, I quit my day job, turn off all the lights, go into hibernation.
Let me tell you, I spent a little time on that island this weekend, and I could see people getting stuck there for quite a while.
Maybe I just need to embrace it. Just need to rip that Band-Aid off.
Yeah, I mean, if you're having a good time with it, then why not just do that all the time?
Because then I'm not having a good time with other games that I could be having a good time with.
Well, I don't know what to tell you.
FOMO.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like I avoid that most of the time.
Yeah, you're much better at that than I am.
Yeah, I just feel like a lot of the time, unless you're really interested in being in on like the discourse as it's happening, the stuff that you're putting off will be there later on.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I have a freshly sealed copy of the brand new Prince of Persia game, which appears to be good, and I enjoyed the demo for that came out in January, and it's just sitting there.
Well, see, that's another one of those things where I was like, this is all right. And then everybody's just like, this is the best game ever made. And I was like, no, that sounds awful. I'll never play this.
That couldn't possibly be true.
Yeah.
So I have that waiting for me as well. The good news is, like, with sort of Nintendo being in the state that it's in right now, with the games industry kind of being in the state that it's in right now, there are not any big, like, must-play AAA games on the horizon as far as I'm aware.
You're just like really banking on there not being any studios left to make games after this year.
Right. Yeah. What a perfect opportunity for me to catch up. It does seem like, and I'm not taking this lightly by any stretch, like every video game developer in the world has been laid off in the last month and a half. So yeah, I don't know what that means for the future of games development, but I feel like the calendar is going to get real weird in the next couple of months.
Yeah, it seems real bad out there.
Yeah.
I mean, it is real bad out there. It doesn't seem that way. Condolences to anybody trying to find or maintain their job in the games industry at this point, because it's another scenario which is very bleak at the moment.
Yeah. But yeah. So, I have the best of intentions. I sort of felt like in the last week, I'm like, I'll get back to Like a Dragon. This is the week. I've got nothing. There's no new releases. And then this Balatro game came out, and the reviews were kind of insane, and it sounded like everything that I would want and love from a video game.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And I dropped some money on it and started playing it, and then just did not stop playing it. So it's wild that these things kind of come out of nowhere and just completely upend any plans I had to be a productive video gamer.
Well, I got bad news, because now you have to stop and play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth like everybody else on my friends list who was playing Balatro for the entire week last week.
All right, well, I'll get right on that.
Okay, good. I'm looking forward to hearing about it.
So, I mean, that was an inelegant segue, but should I talk about Balatro at this point?
Yeah, it's like, well, are we talking about Balatro?
Maybe we should make that happen.
How do you say the name of this game? What does that mean? Do they explain it?
They do not explain it in the game, but the dev has done a bunch of interviews since this thing blew up, and he has clarified pronunciation. I am pronouncing it correctly, and clarified that it is a word that has a Latin origin, and it means like buffoon or clown in in Latin. So that's where it comes from.
This is not like some obscure poker hand that has fallen out of favor.
No, not that I'm aware of. Nope.
Okay.
So Balatro is this is the latest descendant of I think Slay the Spire in a roundabout way, a collectible deck building card game with a really kind of very easy kind of pick up and play vibe to it, with a ton of other little kind of quirks and modifications that make it very addictive to get into. So the hook here is that you're essentially building poker hands. You're trying to sort of play poker against yourself by kind of self-dealing and doing what do they call it? Not a blind. What's the thing called? Where you, I don't know, poker, unfortunately.
I was just going to ask how much poker you played. So this sounds like it's, is it Texas Hold'em? Is it 5-card draw? I don't know.
No, I think it's pretty, I feel like it's pretty standard, at least as far as I know, like standard video poker in that,
Okay.
every kind of round has a blind where you have to, is that called a blind? Where you have to ante up, you have to bet on what you think you can do that round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, wait, but the blind is like, blind is a Texas Hold'em thing, or isn't it? Because that's just sort of like they make you pay it to keep people invested in the game. Like it sort of rotates around the table.
Yes.
I don't know if the blind appears in other formats of poker. I've only played a handful of them.
Texas Hold'em. I don't think I know Texas Hold'em. In this, you have a certain number of times that you can put cards back and draw new ones, and you can choose to play at any time if you feel like you've assembled a good enough hand to be able to sort of push those cards in essentially and score them. You're building things like 2-pair, 3 of a kind, full house, et cetera, et cetera. It has a little cheat sheet in the game that you can pull up by holding down one of the shoulder buttons if you don't know what all the hands are. If you hover over all of them, it'll tell you an explanation of what they are and give you a visual example. So if you're not a poker expert, and I'm not, the game is good at kind of giving you prompts through the whole thing, and it does have a pretty handy built-in like roadmap of what all the poker hands are. And obviously, the more kind of arcane they are and difficult to assemble, the higher they score. You at the end of every round, you win a little bit of money, and you can use that money to buy additional cards to add to your deck, usually in the form of jokers.
Wait, with that. Okay, I'll let you explain what's going on.
It's not poker. Don't confuse it for poker, sir. If you're expecting it to sort of be poker rules all the way through, this is where it gets weird.
Okay. The next I was expecting you to be like, okay, then for a little extra money, you can build a hotel, and then you can,
and then you have to plant a garden, and then do some gardening. And no, so there's I think the number is like 180. I think there's 180 different jokers you can buy in this game, and as you're playing them, you kind of have them like on the table in front of you. Essentially, they modify the game as you go. They will increase the score of a certain suit, hearts, clubs, etc. They'll, sometimes you get dark ones that will turn off the value of certain cards, and then you don't want to play those, obviously. But if you discard them, you're using up the few discards that you have left. They will offer multipliers and things like that, because you're trying every round to hit sort of a minimum score to be able to stay in the game and keep playing again. There's you will also occasionally get shuffled into tarot cards that have kind of weird mystical effects that will cast a spell on certain cards and kind of animate them, and it will increase scores, or it will add buffs that if you can, if you can get 2 pairs in this round, you'll get an X number multiplier on those scores. So you're constantly trying to sort of like make a little bit of money to buy additional cards to increase your score, increase your card values, and then continue to like lather, rinse, repeat essentially until you can find enough combinations of cards to be able to hit the minimum score and roll into the next challenge, the next level. The challenges and the kind of minimum expectations for success get higher and higher every round that you play. So you get to the point eventually where you'll have like 3 or 4 jokers on the table with 2 tarot cards, and you're basically trying to kind of cast a spell and modify. So there's a lot of like math happening essentially of me trying to sort of like, well, if I play these 3 cards at base, they're only worth 60 points, but I've got a 2x multiplier here and an 8x multiplier for using the Suicide King, and et cetera, et cetera. So you're doing a lot of like long division essentially, and long multiplication really, trying to sort of figure out what is the craziest combination of cards that I can play right now to hit these really insane score goals. And at the completion of that, they'll give you a couple of bucks. You'll buy another card. You can only have so many active at a certain time, unless you get a joker that allows you to make your hand bigger, and then you can play X number of cards more, or have an additional spot for a tarot card. So it's, again, very similar to the artifacts that you would find in Slay the Spire. It allows you to kind of break the rules of the game to achieve some like wild, seemingly illegal feeling kind of like multiplier of. I got a multiplier of all of my cards combined essentially that was like 24x. So I played like just one hand, the first hand in a series that was supposed to be 5 or 6 hands long. And the first hand, because the multiplier was so crazy because of all the jokers that I had in play, I was able to hit the minimum score in the entire first hand and cash out right there. And that left X number of hands unused, and those have a cash value too. So I made money off of those. So that was like my most profitable round ever. And it was because of the weird kind of chemistry, essentially alchemy of all of these jokers modifying the deck at once. So it does become this thing where you're just kind of stacking multipliers on top of other weird little advantages and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, it does sound a lot like Slay the Spire.
Yeah, yeah. The way that it's not like Slay the Spire, and we sort of talked about this when I was playing Cobalt Core, is that Cobalt Core essentially sort of like took the mechanisms of Slay the Spire and built kind of a cool story with cool characters around it. And this is more like Slay the Spire in that it doesn't really have that. Like it sort of presents this thing that is kind of mystical looking and kind of spooky. And some of the Joker cards that you get are animated in a way that's kind of menacing, and like the screen will shake and there's like little CRT effects that go through it, like you're playing on VHS sometimes. And so like there's a lot of like vibe to it, but it doesn't really add up to anything. You're not trying to like beat a final boss or anything like that. There's no characters that you're kind of rooting for. It really is just this poker game that is totally broken by the addition of all of these extra jokers and tarot cards that modify everything that's going on in what would happen, modifying everything that's going on in what would otherwise be kind of a pretty standard video poker game.
So you're just playing for a high score or something?
Yeah, it's mostly score attack and really just trying to see in what ways can I sort of break this thing by layering all of these different modifiers on top of it.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, and in that way, it's very much like Slay the Spire, too, because it was always super fun in those Slay the Spire games to sort of see how the different artifacts that you would find would interact with each other and kind of like basically break the scoring or screw up your power or in some way that was a massive advantage that clearly the game maybe wasn't built for. It does feel like you're breaking it a little bit. I keep coming back to that.
It kind of seems like the point.
It does seem like the point, yeah. And that's sort of the subtle genius of it, is that it seems like accidental. It seems like, oh, I wonder if they intended it to be this way. And clearly any well play-tested game that becomes this sort of addictive was absolutely tested enough to know that the breaking of the game is part of the appeal of it. Yeah, so it's been super fun. I wish it sort of added up to more. I wish it did have something like a little like Cobalt Core, or Inscription is the other one that it sort of feels like, in that it's kind of spooky in a way. And Inscription very much had a plot and a mission and an objective for every round, and it wasn't just a score attack kind of thing. And Balatro was really you just breaking poker as much as possible. And I'll be clear with everybody. Yeah, it's totally cool.
Play a video game once in a while.
It has not been enough to get me to stop playing it. So it has absolutely been a very addictive and surprisingly fun find over the last couple of weeks.
Well, hearing you describe it now sounds much more interesting than how I was sort of expecting it. Because I was thinking it was more like a roguelike progression-based game. And I was like, I don't know how much I'm into poker, but also hearing that it's not sort of Texas Hold'em style is a little bit more appealing to me. There was a period where I played tons and tons of video poker. I don't know why. I probably just had one of those little, I feel like everybody had one of those little video poker devices back in the day. And I would just spend hours and hours on that thing.
Yeah, I think I've never really gotten into it on the internet, like gambling with money, but the rare occasions we go to like a casino or something like that, I tend to gravitate towards video poker because I find kind of the routine of poker kind of satisfying, but I don't really know the prompts. I don't know when I'm supposed to bet, or I'm supposed to ante up, or am I supposed to wager now or whatever? So I want the machine to kind of walk me through that stuff.
Oh, I see. Versus playing at a table.
Right. With other players who are expecting that I know the game as well as they do.
Right. Right. Yeah, I can see that. I really don't like the table experience for probably that exact reason, where it's just like it's so fast and you're just expected to keep up with everything. But with video poker, you can just sit there and play a stupid poker video game. And it's not like a slot machine where, you feels like you have slightly more impact on the outcome.
Yes. I think slot machines are also really good at like forcing you through the process too, in a way that I think sort of Balatro is kind of built to do, in that it, like most of the video experience of playing a slot machine now at a casino is so overwhelming, with so many lines in play at once and so many flashing lights, and most of them have like a second screen above them with a mini game that you can unlock and all this stuff, and it's just like, I don't know what's happening, but I keep seeing numbers go up and it's very satisfying. And it makes happy noises and stuff like that. And it's all of that just sort of like kind of force feedback until you kind of like hit the button again and it rolls again and you lather, rinse, repeat, like I said. So I do like that about games like this, and that I don't necessarily have to know all of the rules unless I want to operate at that level. There was certainly a point in Slay the Spire where I was like, I would read every card and I would do the math and I would multiply, like, do I want this in my deck? Because a lot of the curation of the deck in Slay the Spire is kind of the secret extra game. And that my first instinct when I first started playing that game is I want as many cards as possible. Give me all the cards.
Yeah.
But you learn over time that it's better to have just a really small, really tight, well-curated deck, because those cards just cycle through over and over and over again. And you want to increase the likelihood of the good ones coming back into your hand. And there's an element of that to Slay the, there's so many card games, to Balatro as well, in that sometimes there is too much of a good thing. Your base deck is just a deck of cards, but it's those jokers, man, that you have to kind of get that combination right. And it's really, really interesting in the way that they all kind of stack on top of each other. And you do end up doing a little, because you're limited by how many of them you can have it play at once. You're doing a little bit of like, better like this or better like this? Should I have this one or this one or these two? Or is it better to have all three of them gone and just this one? And it does feel like all of those little modifications add up in a really unique way. And you have to be pretty selective and thoughtful about which ones you deploy.
So are you actually discarding cards out of the main deck? So it's like not just the jokers, but you could decide like, I'm not feeling twos in the deck anymore, and to start getting rid of those?
No, you're not curating that deck. You're curating the Joker and the tarot card deck. You have
okay.
A second deck in play at the top. You can tell. I forget one of the buttons you hold down, like the right trigger or something like that. It'll tell you how many of the cards from kind of the base deck that you've already played through it. So it'll give you some sense of like, oh, I still have 3 kings in play and 2 more aces that haven't come up yet. So you're dealing with a standard kind of 52 card deck. And again, if you want to be crazy about this in the way that I'm sort of consuming it now, you want to hit that shoulder button to see kind of what is still left in the draw pile for you. And then you can decide, you have a certain number of discards and a certain number of redraws that you can play. And you have to decide, should I score now or can I burn up one of my discards hoping that I get that next king or the next ace that will put me over the top. So, yeah, it's fun and it's super satisfying, and it does feel like you're doing like hardcore math at some level if you want to choose to consume it that way.
Yeah. Huh. Maybe I should check this out. It's been a while since I did any sort of like poker, so sounds like a fresh take on it.
This, I think, excels at being kind of fun, pick up and play. It has a really smart tutorial that kind of ushers you through the beginning of it. But if you have kind of a base understanding of those those poker hands, like if you know the difference between a flush and a straight, like you already have an advantage and you kind of already get the rules. So that, I think it's pretty sly that they built it on poker as opposed to like Inscription, which is based on its own specific type of game. So some of the challenge of Inscription is trying to sort of like understand the rules of its game. If you understand the basics of poker, you understand the basics of Balatro.
It's always helpful.
Yeah, definitely. I think so too. And it sounds like you've played a little bit of poker in your day, so you may already.
Oh yeah, back in my poker playing days, I don't know. Is there poker in Like a Dragon? I can't remember if that's ever been a thing. Because there's always like the sort of the Asian casino games, like now I'm drawing a complete blank. Well, there's like shogi, and what's the other one they're always playing? Mahjong.
Mahjong, yeah. I could play Mahjong for hours.
I was can you? I was just like, I can't remember actually just playing poker or like even blackjack or something. Even though it always feels like there's some secret underground casino in each of those games. But it's like, man, could we just be playing poker in that?
Yeah.
Anyways. What are you playing this on? Is this on Switch? Is this on mobile by any chance?
I don't believe it's on mobile. That would be smart. But no, I'm playing it on the Switch. I believe it's on everything, though. But I know it's on PlayStation. It's definitely on Steam and Steam Deck. Yeah. The criticism I do have of it on the Switch is that some of the text is very, very tiny.
Oh, here we go again.
It is another one of these games where, like, I find I have to, like, I put my glasses up on my head and I hold the Switch directly up in front of my eyes to read some of the small print. It doesn't make it unplayable, but the last one that I sort of encountered like this was Dave the Diver, and there were moments of that I was really frustrated by not being able to just see what was happening on the screen. I know I'm an old man, but I went to the Balatro, not subreddit, the Discord, and there's like a billion other people who are having the same frustration as I am. So we can't all be going blind. We're probably going blind because we're trying to play Balatro, but yeah, it's definitely an issue, and there's no accessibility option to change it. You can turn off the CRT effect, which is super helpful because it gets rid of like the VHS style kind of like lines through the screen, and it does make it a little bit clearer, but it doesn't make the text any bigger. So it's a lot easier to play on a bigger screen. But I think a game like this is best served in like a portable thing. It feels very kind of pick up and play. And I just want it to like be beautiful and run perfectly on my Switch, and the text size is a little frustrating.
Well, I think that's one of the pitfalls of releasing on everything.
Yeah.
Maybe once it's calmed down a little bit after the launch, they can go back and tweak things a bit.
Yeah, but it's a single person dev. He's the only person on his development team. Yeah. And he sold like 1 million copies of this game in a week. It was nuts. So I think money is rolling in, and hopefully he can hire some help, and they can start to work through some of these little bug fixes and other fun stuff to kind of get it, a little easier for me to play in bed in dark.
Oh, good for him. That's exciting.
Yeah, it's super exciting. It's a good game too. A lot of fun.
Yeah. Speaking of single developer studios or something in the approximate area, I played this game Shashingo last week.
Yeah.
Which, how to best describe this? I guess so. The game promises, or the promises the game sets out is that you will learn Japanese with photography. So, kind of immediately puts it into this very interesting sort of niche, being kind of like an educational game, which I don't play a lot of.
Yeah.
But, been studying some Japanese in my free time. I've tried multitudes of different like apps and sort of like learning systems, programs, I don't know. So I'm just always kind of on the lookout for new tools.
Yeah.
One of the most helpful things you can do is just try and learn from more than one source. So like, it's not about just using like an app or something, or a single app anyway. If you're trying to learn a language or something, just get more exposure. So I saw this was like a Kickstarter, and basically what it is you go around and you take pictures of objects in this sort of very shrunken down version of Shibuya in Japan. And once you take a picture, the game will give you the Japanese name or words for whatever object you just took a picture of, and it will give you a little audio clip. And it basically just turns into sort of this like flashcards app. You spend most of your time in it just wandering around, taking pictures of stuff and trying to increase your vocabulary.
And does it get conversational at all, or is it just teaching you words for things?
It doesn't really get conversational, like at least not in the main game. It's mostly like, despite the like full 3D appearance and the ability to walk around and everything. It's largely like a flashcards app, I guess is what it boils down to, because you end up with this collection of photos, which, is cool because they're all photos you have taken. But then you just sort of like go through your photo library and review all the words from the cards. And eventually there is a sort of like test mode where you load it up and it will then ask you to, or it will like present you with a word. And then you have to go and take a picture of it without sort of like the game giving you the definition. So you have to go, oh, what was like Neko or whatever? I have to go take a picture of one of those now. So it's a little bit of a sort of game built into it as well.
Well, we'll scavenger hunt based on you hopefully understanding what the right word is, right thing is, right?
Yeah, it's a bit of a scavenger hunt thing, which was fun.
Yeah, that's a cool concept.
Yeah, very interesting idea. It's been in the works for a while, so it's cool to see it finally come out. Played a little bit of it last week, had a good time just sort of wandering around, just trying to figure out what the game is about. And, just taking pictures of things was kind of fun. It's kind of a cool environment just to, like, sort of walk around in. It's a little bit of the, like, virtual tourism thing, even though it's not like a one-to-one recreation of a real area or anything.
Yeah.
But it feels very plausible. So it's like, oh yeah, I'll just go down this little side alley and there's a little grocery store and there's a little shrine here. Ooh, what kind of vocabulary relates to a shrine? So I'll take a bunch of pictures of stuff around the shrine and that sort of thing. So it's been interesting. I really like the sort of scavenger hunt aspect of it. I mean, that's probably the most sort of game-like part of it, where, you're actually trying to complete objectives and all that. Overall, I think I had a pretty good time with it. It feels more like sort of a proof of concept as it is currently, because at the moment you just have this one area, which is like fairly large area, and there's a ton of different objects scattered around. So like you've got your sort of like park square lined with a bunch of shops, and they've gone out of their way to scatter additional sort of objects around. So like at points you'll run into like a table where people have left out some like food and drinks and like their cell phone and everything. So you can take pictures of all of those things to add to your list. And then all the shops will have things like out on display, which, again, you just take pictures of. But I felt like, man, it would be great if eventually you could like leave this area and go into a grocery store or something, and then just wander up and down every aisle in the grocery store and take pictures of everything in there, or go on a vacation to the mountains or something and get sort of these sort of themed word sets. Which is, I understand that it is just, a very small developer, so that is kind of an unrealistic expectation that you would just be able to traverse the entire world and take pictures of every word in the dictionary. But that was sort of the feeling that I got while I was playing this, where I was just like, oh man, this is so cool. I wish it had everything in it. And I sort of wish that it reminded me a lot in a way of if you've played any of the Katamari games. Because the environments in those, they're all sort of like, well, in this stage, you're in a house, or in this one, you're downtown walking around, or rolling around in this case. And there are typical objects you would expect to see in those settings. But then there's also just this weird assortment of stuff that doesn't make any sense, like the most random objects. Like you'll be walking around downtown and there'll just be like a bear walking around, or a giant, I don't know, like birthday cake or something. And I think it would have been fun and added a little twist to the scavenger hunt mode if there was just more weird objects populated everywhere. So yeah, you're taking pictures of stuff that belongs in a city, but hey, there's a bear. Like, what's the Japanese word for bear? I should probably take a picture of it, and then I can learn what that is. And then it would, the scavenger hunt would become orders of magnitude more complicated, because then you'd have to be like, oh, where was that weird thing that didn't make any sense for it to be in a city or something like that? You gotta go track it down.
That's cool. That sounds really neat.
Yeah, it was cool.
A little video of it right now on Steam, and definitely, it's very cool. And it seems like there's a ton of stuff kind of packed into some of these little environments.
There is actually a lot of stuff. It was sort of overwhelming to get started because it doesn't really like guide you at all past the tutorial. Like it explains how to take a picture and sort of what to expect from that. Like it adds vocabulary to your word list, and you can actually you can go into your word list and like right click on a word and it'll give you a list of sort of related words. Like if you take a picture of a puddle, one of the related words would be wet or something like that. You know how words work.
I do, yes. Yep.
But
occasionally, yeah.
Yeah, so beyond that, it just sort of turns you loose and it's like, okay, just go take pictures of stuff. And I just thought, oh, take pictures of anything? Like, should I be focusing on one specific like group of words or something? I don't know. But no, it doesn't really hold your hand or anything. It just sort of lets you go and sort of learn on your own.
Yeah, I'm looking at the video. It shows little, you take the picture and it turns it into a little Polaroid. And if you flip the Polaroid over, it gives you kind of, like you said, related words.
Mm-hmm.
So in the demo, they're showing you take a picture of a dog and it teaches you the word for dog, of course. But then you flip it over and it's like, you can modify it with Fluffy. It's a fluffy dog, or it's a, or to pet a dog. And it gives you some words to be able to kind of do that. So that's really, really very cool and much more, probably useful than I think I was originally imagining, just suddenly knowing a bunch of words without any context.
Yeah, I think the context is actually a really interesting component of it. I mean, because it's certainly much more engaging than just looking at a list of, your basic intro to Japanese vocabulary or something. Because you start out just sort of walking around and then you can go, oh, how do I say this? Or how do I say this? One of my favorite sections was you walk by a little grocery store and then you just learn a bunch of fruit all at once. Just like, oh, okay, yeah, this sort of makes sense. Or like felt more intuitive to me, where you just learn a bunch of words in one category, sort of grouped together.
Mm-hmm.
And then you turn the corner and there's like a little parking lot, and then you learn a bunch of parking lot related words, which is also kind of random. So yeah, that's sort of getting to my wish that there will be, or that they would expand into more focused areas eventually. But I have no idea what the future plans for this sort of thing are.
How does this compare to some of the other tools that you've you've used for learning? You've done like Duolingo and stuff like that. And I think if I understand correctly, there's a very like gamified approach to learning there too. So how does this kind of stack up against some of the other stuff you've used?
So I think if you wanted to group all of these like learning tools together, this is basically just flashcards, which is very helpful for like drilling vocabulary. And I do like that it's sort of like when you do the find mode, whenever you miss words repeatedly, it will put them on a list of like weak words. So you're sort of encouraged to go back and take a look at those.
Yeah, smart.
Yeah, so it does a little bit of, it is a little smart about what words it presents to you, or sort of it informs you of where you could use a little more study or something like that. Duolingo is much more of a study tool than a game, I guess. It does have gamified elements, which boil down to like, hey, keep your like study streak going by studying X amount of minutes every day and by doing X number of lessons. But it's a very different sort of experience than this thing. I was actually wondering coming into this, like, how effective this would be. Like, if you knew no Japanese coming into it, what is your experience level going to be afterward?
Yeah.
And basically, you just learn a bunch of vocabulary without much context and sort of the knowledge of how to put all of those together into different sentences.
Yeah.
Although there is this sort of interesting sort of like basic tutorial mode, like Japanese tutorial mode, like not a tutorial about how to play the game. It actually is a really interesting set of explanations of basic sort of Japanese grammar, and I think there's some pronunciation in there, but it will sort of throw some basic sentences at you, and it's all fully voiced, so you can hear the pronunciation and everything.
Yeah, that's clever.
And, if you really look at that, and read it over multiple times, you can probably start making some sentences out of these things, like all the words you learn from the pictures in the game.
Yeah.
But I think it's, it's not really comparable to something like Duolingo, where you're expected to just keep coming back to it every day, and they'll present new lessons and grammar and sentence structures and that sort of stuff to you.
So Shashingo isn't making anybody fluent.
No,
Yeah.
definitely not. But it is a very cool flashcards tool, which, I've used different flashcards tools over the years, and if you really want to, drill something into your head, that is a great way to do it. Plus, and I really like that there's this personalized approach where it's based on, or theoretically it's based on objects that you found interesting, and, you have slightly more connection to them, perhaps because you encounter them in this virtual environment.
And if it's helping you stumble around Japan and read signs or figure out what you're buying at the grocery store, then there might be some advantage to having this stuff in your head.
Yeah, I guess if I had one more sort of, I don't want to call it a complaint because that sounds so negative, but just observation about this, is that all the words you encounter, because they're basically objects that make sense for them to exist in this city square, it is kind of just a very arbitrary assortment of vocabulary. So they don't just sit you down and be like, hey, here's all the numbers. Or one thing that's missing from this is a lot of verbs, because you really just get a lot of nouns because you're taking pictures of objects. And while you get some of that from the expanded related words, if you, on the other side of the photos that you take, there's not really I don't know, here's your top 10 most useful Japanese verbs to know as a beginner Japanese student, which could be useful, but not necessarily what the game is going for.
And like you said, if it's making a point of teaching you the word for bear, how often do you need that?
True. But also, how often are you going to use the word for, automated parking machine or whatever? There was, the little, parking payment machine.
Yeah.
Or air conditioner. Well, it makes sense that they would have one of those because they're on every building here, but I don't know how many times I need to say air conditioner in English, let alone Japanese, so.
Probably slightly more than you would say, watch out, there's a bear.
True. Although, man, if you do need to say, watch out, there's a bear, that is important to know. Probably don't need to warn off a lot of people about air conditioners.
Wild bear.
Yeah. So it does feel just like a bit of an arbitrary assortment of words, but it's fun. It's a little bit of the virtual tourism. You feel like you're learning something along the way. Like I said, I don't know what the plans for future updates to this are. I would love if they go to different regions, or just have new sets of words you can learn, because I feel I spent a few hours with the game so far, and I think I have photographed everything in there. So I don't know what's next. I certainly don't remember the words for everything in there, so maybe I just need to go through and 100% my little photo book.
Yeah.
But it's been a very interesting sort of experiment. It's been a lot of fun.
It seems likely that there would but it would make sense to continue to do stuff that's sort of the airport and travel words and like you said, little curated collections of things that go together, cooking and food and stuff like that.
Yeah. Like I said, I would love the grocery store one. I would love go to a restaurant and have to order something off the menu or something.
Read the menu. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That was actually one of the most harrowing experiences when I actually went to Japan after doing some studying, is that, you learn a lot of words like, where's the store or where's the post office, but they don't teach you oh, what are all the million types of noodles or parts of a chicken or something?
Sure.
What is all of this?
Once you get in the restaurant, you're screwed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that'd be fun. Just the Shashingo menu edition. I would definitely be in for that one.
That's cool. I have a document on my phone that somebody on Reddit made that is how to say you're vegan or ask for help as a vegan at a restaurant in 52 different languages. And it has the full phonetic pronunciations of things and stuff like that. So wherever you are, I have a list of things that I can sort of stumble my way through that says, I don't eat animal products. Could you please help me?
That is hysterical.
Yeah.
It's how do you know somebody's vegan? Or how do you find the vegan? What's the joke? Don't worry, they'll tell you. Now in every single language.
Now in a billion languages, exactly.
That's incredible.
Yeah. What a cool thing this is. I don't have a lot of desire to learn Japanese, and I don't think I have a lot of like utility to like need it in my life. But you don't know until you know, right? So, but this seems very cool and very fun, and the photography aspect of it is kind of right up my alley. So,
yeah,
I bookmarked this on Steam. I might check it out.
Yeah, I think it's probably even if you, like you said, you don't really have a huge interest in learning it, it's still a fun thing to just play around with for a few hours.
Yeah.
You'll probably run into some words where you're like, oh yeah, I've heard that before. I didn't realize that was what it was. Or now I know how to say dog in Japanese. That's fun. There are not a lot of people walking around, so can't tell you if you would have learned how to say vegan after playing this. Probably not. But
can I pet your dog? Man, that would come in handy. I would be that person in every country. Can I pet your dog?
Yeah.
Yep.
I wish they had like... One of the other things I really was like on my wish list for this is just to expand that related words feature. So, having sample sentences like that, like, can I pet your dog? Or, oh, cute dog, or whatever. Or like, watch out for that dog. And then the other thing I would really like is...
Is that a dog or a bear?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, what a tiny bear. I would love for there to be sort of a word breakdown feature for this, and this is like just adding more and more expectations onto this poor developer is probably incredibly overwhelmed at this point. But I'm just like, yeah, what if every picture you took just turned into a fully linked dictionary entry on the link to every other piece of Japanese vocabulary out there? Because I would run into all these words like what was it? A vending machine. Very important word to know, or very fun anyway. And I took a picture of it because I didn't know how to say that word. And it was like 5 kanji characters in a row, which is like, okay, that's difficult. But I was looking at it and I was like, okay, so I recognize this. This is like the kanji for like oneself. And I think this one on the end is like a machine. Or at least I've heard this before in the context of talking about other sort of devices. But I don't know what the 3 kanji in the middle are. And I would have loved if I could just click on them and it would tell me so that you could figure out like, oh, so the way you say vending machine is like, I have no idea what it would actually break down to, but I imagine it's something like the self-service like purchasing machine or something like that. And
right.
If I could know that, then I'd go, oh yeah. Vending machine, I know how to say that. It's very easy to remember suddenly.
Right. And then if you see that character in context elsewhere, you will have already kind of added it to your brain.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's one of the fun things about learning sort of a pictograph-based language, that you sort of recognize like, oh, this piece of this word is from this other word that I know, so I can sort of start to guess what this word means.
It's clever.
But I think, yeah, several orders of magnitude beyond like what I should reasonably expect from, I think it's just one guy working on this primarily.
Oh, wow.
So maybe if this does well, maybe if this starts doing Balatro numbers, they'll be able to hire a larger team and expand this to the point where I'll be like, oh yeah, this is finally has everything I want. But until then, it's out on Steam. I think there are plans for it to come to Switch eventually, so that should be fun. Should expand the audience quite a bit. And yeah, so it's pretty fun. I had a good time with it. And if you have any interest in sort of like learning or studying Japanese or just maybe learning a few words for fun, I would definitely check it out.
Yeah. It's cool that stuff like this exists.
Yeah. In the process of, sort of like reading up on this, I discovered like there are so many other just weird sort of apps that attempt to teach you another language via like a video game experience. So now I have a bunch of those things on my list, or maybe I'll check in on those in a future episode.
Yeah. Cool.
Cool.
What a random thing to exist in the world.
Yeah. But like you said, I'm glad that people are doing stuff like this, like a fun take on sort of a photography game.
Right. Cool. All right. Let's talk about Splatoon.
Yeah, you played some Splatoon.
We played some Splatoon.
I was there. I witnessed it.
DJ was there. Yes, we were doing our new Monday night streams, and this was the inaugural stream. So we were sharing the new side order DLC. It's a single order DLC pack that basically turns the Splatoon rhythm into a what would you call it? Like a territory-based, objective-driven roguelike.
Yeah, well, I mean, it seems like the objectives seem to differ depending, or like every floor, you would be doing a different thing. So it wasn't always like, capture X amount of territory like you would be doing in a multiplayer match.
Yeah, you're right. There were a couple different, a handful of different objectives that would you kind of cycle through as you hit different floors on this spire of Splatoon challenges, and some of them were there were like little balls on the field that you had to spray with ink and push across the game board to a goal, to a dock that it had to fit into. While enemies are trying to get you, and gravity is working against you sometimes, and other stuff like that. There were some chase and destroy kind of ones where there were 4 or 5 different little weird little fish monsters on the field that you had to chase down and annihilate, and they did not want to be caught. No, so you would have to work pretty hard to find shortcuts around the arena and things like that to catch them. And on and on. I think there were three or four that I found that were very similar, kind of like, you manifest into the level and it says, do this one thing. And while that's happening, there's a bunch of enemies coming after you.
The whole time you're just being pursued by these weird, kind of creepy fish-based enemies.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is like, seems like it's unique to this, right? Because those wouldn't be in the multiplayer mode. Did Splatoon 3 have a campaign side to it?
Yes, there's a campaign in Splatoon 3. All the Splatoons have a campaign, yeah.
Oh.
But these enemies, no, this is new to this.
Oh.
Yeah. And you get some explanation eventually, like why they look the way they do and what they are and stuff like that. But yeah, in the context of this, they are a new feature to this roguelike mode. There's a couple different variations on them in size and what their kind of marching orders are. There's small ones that kind of gang up together and follow you. Like, I think you said, DJ, while we were playing it, they were like the Horde in Halo.
Oh no, yeah, they're just the little flood alien thing.
Flood,
the like the little beans that chase you around. I like
trying
that,
to overwhelm you.
They really just had that exact same sort of level of aggression towards you, where they're just like, we're just gonna, we're gonna get you. We're just sort of like making our way over to you.
Yeah.
And it's your job to run away. They didn't seem particularly aggressive or anything. They were just sort of, they're just there.
Yeah. Yes, I think the hook seems to be that they're trying to overwhelm you more than anything, because it's not like they're even firing on you.
Yeah.
So it's not like a regular session of Splatoon where you have other kind of, other characters controlled by presumably people or the computer that have weapons of their own and are trying to attack you. These guys didn't have any weapons. They were just trying to sort of overwhelm you by sheer numbers.
Yeah.
And by persistence.
They're very persistent.
Yeah, so there were little portals on the field where they would sort of manifest out of those and chase you around from there. If you could shut down the portals, you could give yourself a little bit of a breathing room for a second, but then occasionally they would reopen and on and on. So the floors got increasingly more difficult, of course, as they went. You start every level with a pretty base loadout of a weapon and a pretty slow-moving character, and you have a palette full of spaces where you can put in little unlocks. And you kind of wager at the beginning of every floor, do I want to do an easy challenge, a normal challenge, or a hard challenge? Sometimes it's just all easy ones, and sometimes it's all hard ones, and you don't really have a choice. But you get a sort of a commensurate reward for that, and it is a chip that allows you to enhance some part of your playability, your movement speed, the amount of ink that you use, the damage that you do. You have a little flying drone that flies alongside of you, and you can upgrade that throughout the course of it too. So she'll attack on her own. And she has like 4 or 5 different types of attacks that she can use and how quickly those cool down and things like that. So the further you go, the more chips you unlock, the more powerful you get. There's also sort of a secondary tree of upgrades that are persistent. The chips reset at the end of every play. So if you die, you basically give up your palette and you have to start over from scratch. But there are also kind of pervasive, persistent upgrades that do make you a little bit faster, a little bit stronger, a little bit more powerful as you go through multiple attempts at climbing to the top of the spire.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Seemed
it's
cool. It seemed very weirdly similar to Slay the Spire in terms of what decisions you were making in between levels. Where it felt like
but not a card game.
Well, yes, yeah, to be clear. Although you were kind of collecting cards as you went up.
This is true. Yeah, there's definitely a collectory aspect to it that is similar to the Slay the Spire approach too.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting that when you had to pick between the different difficulty levels, because like just as it is in Slay the Spire or like FTL, yeah, I just found myself thinking like, oh, it sure would be nice if we could do another easy level, but at the same time, it felt like in order to make any sort of meaningful progress developing your character and stocking whatever the currency was to buy the persistent upgrades.
Pearls.
Yeah, to get the pearls. You basically had to do the hard levels fairly regularly. Otherwise, it was going to be a very long process.
Yes.
But the hard levels seemed quite challenging.
They were indeed, yes. Yeah, that was that's the rub, is that I was feeling pretty ballsy on our first attempt, and I think we got 3 or 4 levels in, and the reward for doing the hard challenge on the 4th level was so good that I couldn't say no.
Oh yeah.
And then immediately regretted it because it was just like thoroughly overwhelming. And yeah, I imagine sort of those feel a little bit easier after you've kind of run this a bunch of times and you kind of know where they come from and what the objective is, and you do build a bit of a shorthand around some of the arenas. That's sort of the advantage of these things kind of recurring in a way. But yeah, that first attempt was just not a smart way to do that, and I got washed out pretty quickly.
Seemed cool though. Like, I can't. Well, I'm sure I've played some sort of like more action-based roguelike in this way, but whatever it was escapes me at the moment. It did just seem like a fun sort of arcadey Splatoon experience. Like,
yeah,
I played a bit of the campaign in Splatoon 2. But I sort of dropped off it after a while. I think maybe something like this might have a better chance of getting me to just come back to it, because it's, I like the roguelike format. It's interesting that there's the persistence after each run, and just like sort of the bite-sized nature of each stage, I thought was a little more engaging than the Splatoon 2 campaign.
Yeah. Nothing beats kind of the fun and rush of a full scale, like 4-on-4 Splatoon battle, obviously. But this is a really kind of surprisingly effective way of taking the Splatoon world and turning it into a roguelike and making it a single player kind of challenge experience. There have been single player DLC packs and single player campaigns on these games in the past, and they're generally pretty fun. I've played through all of them. But this is the first time that I think they've really even kind of remixed the genre of the game in a way that feels very satisfying. I don't love the roguelike thing. I've found a few games over the last couple of years that I feel like it kind of works, and it definitely works in Splatoon 3.
Okay, hold on. I was just going to call you out, because I think for the last like 3 episodes in a row, you've been playing some roguelike or
some variation on a roguelike. Yeah.
Like it may have been true at one point. You were just like, roguelikes, can't stand them. But based on how 2024 is going, not so sure that holds up anymore.
Yeah, I'm 10 years behind the rest of the gaming industry, probably. But maybe
I feel like 2024, good chance that this is the year you get into Spelunky.
Yeah.
Still have my fingers crossed. We'll see.
Maybe it's easy. Maybe I should at least attempt it again, rather than just sort of being in my head about, no, I don't like games like that.
I think so. I mean, what was it? I can't even remember which roguelike you were talking about when I was having these thoughts, but I think it was Cobalt Core. Just the way you were describing that game and sort of like the way you were reacting to things, I was like, this is it. This is a Spelunky situation he's describing right here.
Oh, that's funny. I own both of them. I should give them a shot. Maybe that would be a fun objective for me for this year.
Oh yeah. Oh no, that'll be the next stream, or a stream at some point, I think.
Oh geez.
Put it all out there.
At some point we have to stream a game that people get to watch me be good at, please.
Yeah. We'll balance it out.
Because I don't necessarily know that this was good TV, seeing me get wiped out in level 4 every time.
I thought it was pretty tense. Just like those fish following you around.
Yeah.
Very scary.
It's funny because there were some levels that I would go into that I was just sort of like 30 seconds in and out, like did the thing, get out the door. And there were some that just felt like really difficult objectives that weren't necessarily even like quote unquote a hard mode. But just, had a lot of objectives going on at once or two goals you had to defend. There's a territory defense one that you have to do, and that one seems very overwhelming. And yeah, some of those levels were not 30 seconds in and out. Were definitely much longer, tougher challenges. And that's cool. I mean, you want that kind of like that rotation and that push-pull of objectives. But it's very cool. And I like sort of seeing the persistent levels kind of increase and definitely feeling a little bit more powerful as you go into it. I'll share it, and I'll put a link to this in our show notes. There's a video on YouTube right now of a player. The palette that you get that sort of modifies your character's abilities as you go. Each of the upgrades has a specific color code that impacts some part of the gameplay, be it your armor or your weapon strength or your movement ability. One of those is enhances your drone attack as well. And the video is Splatoon 3 side order, but Pearl does all the work for me. And Pearl is the drone. Yeah. So rather than doing like a mix in the palette of a bunch of different upgrades to sort of make everything a little bit more powerful, this player just put chips in for every Pearl upgrade you could possibly imagine. Yeah. It is essentially in the level him walking through while his drone just really does all the work, just wipes everybody out. And it's super fun to watch. And it's just fun to sort of see the graphic of the palette with every chip being drone chips color and then going in there and Pearl goes crazy.
That's really good.
It's super satisfying. Yeah. And again, it's one of those things like some of the other games we've been talking about, like Slay the Spire or Balatro, where it feels like there's these really fun ways to kind of break it a little bit and just to see what happens. And this definitely feels like, maybe it wasn't intended to be consumed this way, but it's really fun to watch it get consumed this way. So I'll make sure there's a link to that in the show notes if anybody wants to check it out. It's not me doing it. I wish I was that good or that smart, but it's real fun to see just an expert Splatoon player break this thing a little bit.
Is that something you could like conceivably do every single time? Like you just do the all Pearl build, or is that depends on what cards they offer you, or chips, cards, whatever?
I'm not sure how he got to this point. For me, it really is. As I'm going through it, I'm putting the chips into the palette as I'm going. And in this mode, it's level 30. It's the top floor of the thing that he's in, and every single chip he has is just for Pearl. So I'm not sure how he was able to curate it. I suspect there is some level of kind of going back and replaying previous floors. That must allow you to continue to kind of curate and wait for the Pearl option to continue to come up, because you don't get offered one for your drone upgrade every single time.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was wondering. It feels like in Vampire Survivors, actually, every time you level up, you're given a choice of 3 upgrades, and I have several builds at this point that I really enjoy, and I try and usually work towards one of those, but sometimes they just don't give you the path, and you have to improvise a bit.
Right, yeah.
Which is fun, because then you're just like, oh, okay, next time I'll get that really cool build, but we'll see what crazy results I get from taking a different route this time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that is kind of the fun, it's one of the many fun things about when a roguelike works for me, because again, Slay the Spire, every run ends with me totally understanding exactly where I went wrong, and committing that I'm going to do it better next time. And okay, for next time, I'm really just going to focus on defense, or next time I'm really going to just put all of my money into magic. And it does allow you to kind of come up with a plan for how you think you're going to dominate this game that clearly does not want to be dominated. And it's super fun and super satisfying. It's just, I love it when stuff like this kind of comes together in a way that just feels like it works.
Yeah. I don't know why I just don't, or just why I'm so skeptical of Nintendo dipping their toe into these different sort of genre offshoots, where it's like, oh, not especially known for roguelikes. I wonder how they're going to screw this up. And then, lo and behold, they just continuously knock it out of the park. It's like, oh, well, who saw that coming?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's probably some really smart people over there.
Yeah, I know. I just constantly forget, the company that's just been making video games for the last 40 years or whatever.
Yeah.
they must know it's a little bit about what's up.
Well, it's interesting that they sort of bury it as like the secondary thing. It's like it's the final pack of DLC for a game that is 18, 19 months old at this point. It is by far the hardest part of this game, and it's sort of the least approachable. It's kind of the most dense with rules and things and it does require you to sort of play it over and over and over again. So if you are a Splatoon consumer who wants sort of that rush of jumping into a match right away and just doing that thing, this is so not that. So it does feel like it is this weird other thing under the Splatoon umbrella, that I gotta imagine that there's a core component of the Splatoon community that's like, what the hell is this? Where this doesn't make sense in any way to them. It would be interesting that if this was the core product, like if this is somehow what, Splatoon 3 exactly was. I can only imagine how confusing that would be for some players. So it's cool that, nearly 2 years into the lifespan of Splatoon 3, that the devs have the luxury of being able to kind of, massage and manipulate and extend what you can do with a Splatoon game in this direction.
Yeah, no, it's very cool. This is not like available as a standalone thing, right? You need the full game, all the multiplayer and everything to check this out.
You need to own Splatoon 3. And then you have to buy the expansion pass. You can't even just buy this separately. You have to buy the expansion pass, which gives you both packs of DLC.
See, I'm not. I don't see myself playing a lot of the multiplayer Splatoon. Is the thing, but I'm kind of curious about this mode. It's like, I'll probably play this for a bit, but I don't see myself going online.
If you pay full price for everything, it's an $85 investment.
Ugh.
Yeah, just to get to the side order DLC. So it's And it's a lot. It's definitely like you have to be invested, right? and literally have to be invested. So, it would be very cool if this was like a $10 thing on the eShop that you could just buy on spec and play.
Yeah.
Because I think it would bring some really interesting people to the party. But I think more than anything, it's just kind of catering to the folks who've like done all the stuff and want to know what else is in there.
Yeah.
It's very cool, though. I would totally recommend. So this is the Splatoon 3 Side Order DLC. This just came out last week.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of fun.
I encourage folks to check it out if you're interested.
Cool. I am interested. I'm just not. Don't know if I'm $85 interested. This is
just not wealthy, right? Yeah.
This is not even one of those things where it's like, oh, it comes with the like Nintendo Switch Online pass or whatever, is it?
No, unfortunately not.
Oh man, can't even throw me a bone there.
Yeah, I mean, you need the Switch Online pass to be able to play Splatoon Online, but no, you still have to buy the expansion pass to be able to upgrade your copy of Splatoon 3 to be able to play Side Order.
All right. Well,
there's a lot of weird little prerequisites.
I guess I'll just stick with my N64 games or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe someday in the future it will be a standalone thing. It would be very cool if this was, but I can't imagine that being the case.
Yeah. Well. It does feel a bit experimental, so who knows what the next sort of iteration of this will be like.
Yeah. All right, well, we should wrap this thing up. Before we do, we have some streaming news.
Yeah, so like we said, so we started these Monday streams on the off weeks when we're not doing a regular podcast. So that was how we had the Splatoon 3 stream going. The next one of these is slated for Monday, March 11th at 10 p.m. Eastern. As it turns out, Randy will be out that week. So it'll just be me playing probably Unicorn Overlord. Is that the right name? That's the name of a video game?
That is the name of a video game that I'm aware of, yes.
I'm just reading what it says here. Doesn't seem like that makes sense, but that's what will be happening, I guess. So if that sounds cool to you, you can catch us, you can catch me rather, at twitch.tv/VGHangover, Monday the 11th.
Cool. Can I say you, correct me if I'm wrong, DJ, but my fumbling attempts to play Splatoon 3 are preserved for all of eternity on Twitch, right? And can be queued up anytime if somebody wants to watch that thing.
It'll be on Twitch for a bit, I think, and then it'll be on our YouTube eventually. So YouTube/VGHangover.
Lovely.
Yeah. So check it out. Yeah, you can see what all the fuss is about.
Yeah.
See all those creepy fish following Randy around the level. It's hard to describe like how eerie that was. Just it's like, okay, so they don't quite look like fish or like robots or whatever. They just had like the big sort of hollow glowing eyes.
Yeah.
And they were just very methodically advancing across the arena towards wherever you happen to be. It was just very surreal.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're like squishy, like outside bodies with like visible, like black inky skeletons inside. It is a little alarming the first time you see that.
Yeah.
When you turn around and there's like 100 of them right behind you.
Yeah, it's a weird like Splatoon jump scare. But yeah, if you're into that, youtube.com/VGHangover will have the stream archive on there.
Nice. But yeah, tune in, watch DJ, do something with unicorns.
Yeah. Are there unicorns in this? I don't even know. We'll find out together.
All right. That is Monday, March 11th, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. In the meantime, if you need any more video game hangover in your brain, you should follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/VGHangover. We always post our stream announcements there. You can get show notes and links and tell us what you think about this episode at VGHangover.com. You can join us on Discord. You can get a link to that at VGHangover.com as well. And we would love for you to subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere else you can get a podcast. And particularly if you can get this podcast there, you should definitely do so. And maybe help us out by telling your friends about the show.
Yeah, we really appreciate that. Helps us get the word out and bring in some new listeners to the audience. Yeah. That's terrific. We want to give thanks again to Fear of Dark for our intro and outro music this week. If you'd like to hear more of his work, you can go to fearofdark.bandcamp.com and purchase his entire discography. Do it.
All right, we'll be back soon. Until next time, this is Randy Dickinson.
This is DJ Ross.
Thanks so much for listening to Video Game Hangover. Goodbye.
Good night.
Yeah.